What's up, Headless Horde? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to talk about House of the Dragon, and we're going to talk about Helaena Targaryen's Prophecies. And I've got a bunch of them for you. We're going to break those all down. But first, hit that like button, subscribe if you're new. Guys, there will be spoilers, all things House of the Dragon, up and through episode 1 of season 2. And there may even be some slight spoilers from the book Fire and Blood. Now, I will give you the spoiler warning when that part is up, so you can fast forward the video. All right, so the first thing I want to talk about is Helaena Targaryen herself. So she was first introduced to us in the episode The Princess and the Queen way back in season 1, episode number 6. And the first time we meet her, it almost seems like she's kind of like just a crazy little girl who likes bugs. And it's funny because a lot of what we see of her so far, it doesn't really take place in the book, which is really interesting that they decided to do this. I know that Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon, it's all about foreshadowing. So I thought this was a very neat way to bring it into the show by having a character who doesn't really do a whole lot in the book, take that step forward in the show to make it a little bit more interesting. Prophecy number 1 occurs in episode 6, and we see Helaena speaking to her mother, Alicent, while she's on the floor analyzing the number of legs and eyes an insect has. Again, at first, it kind of seems like this is just a complete throwaway line, but what she says, I believe, has much deeper meaning.
This one has 60 rings and 2 pairs of legs on each. That's 240. It has eyes, though I don't believe it can see. The last ring has no legs at all.
Now, if we take that last line that she says in that statement, the last ring has no legs at all, I feel like it means one of 2 things. So the first thing it could be is in Game of Thrones, we see that Bran Stark loses his ability to walk after he falls in season 1. And then after becoming the new 3-eyed Raven, he ends up on the Iron Throne and he's known as Bran the Broken, which makes him literally the last ring or king with no legs. Now, we're in slight spoiler territory here, so if you don't want to get any information about the upcoming episodes of House of the Dragon, I would click away and skip over about 30 seconds. All right, now we're going to talk a little bit about some spoilers. So, in House of the Dragon, and this happens in the novel Fire and Blood, what ends up happening is at one of the heights of the actual show, during the Dance of the Dragons, Aegon will end up finding himself in a battle against Baela, and what happens is both dragons will end up falling from the sky. Aegon ends up saving himself by jumping off of his dragon's back. He does survive, but ends up breaking both of his legs, and that is basically how he has to live the rest of his life. So once again, if we read that quote, the last ring has no legs at all. There it is. Aegon, who's the current ruler, now has no legs. Prophecy number 2, we see Aemond come and talk to Alicent, and Helaena is also in the room, and he's coming to tell her about the whole situation with the pig being presented to him as his dragon. During his conversation with Alicent, he makes mention that he doesn't think he's ever going to get a dragon, and then we hear Alicent reassure him. At that time, we then hear Helaena say he'll have to close an eye.
You will have a dragon one day.
He'll have to close an eye.
And basically, it's funny how the characters just completely ignore what she said. And then obviously we find later on in the next episode that Lucerys ends up taking a dagger to his eye to help his brother Jace. and ends up cutting his eye out, and then the prophecy ends up coming true. Prophecy number 3 happens in episode number 7, and this one is titled Driftmark. At the funeral for Helaena Targaryen, we see that Aegon and Aemond go over and talk to Helaena. So during this conversation, we find out that Aegon and Helaena are going to be married, although they are brother and sister. But again, this is very common in the Targaryen family tree. During this conversation, Aegon is kind of making fun of Helaena because she's just kind of sitting there, once again, talking to bugs. And she ends up kind of saying and repeating over and over again, she says,
Spool of black, dragons of flesh, weaving dragons of thread, hand turns loom.
If we take the first part of her words, hands turns loom, I think that this refers to Otto Hightower and how he is so power hungry and is just basically pushing both sides to war. If we take spool of green, spool of black, I think that's the easiest one to kind of decipher because we know we have Team Black versus Team Green at this point. And it's just really funny that in episode 7, Helaena already is talking about this. Finally, dragons of flesh, weaving dragons of thread. And I'm pretty sure that this has everything to do with what happens in the final episode with Lucerys being killed by Aemond and Vhagar. The other thing that could represent is that Rhaenyra is going to keep the traditional colors of black and red. So that could be the thread part of the statement. And then Aegon will be taking on the color of green because he sports a 3-headed green dragon. An interesting note, though, in the book, it's actually golden for his dragon Sunfire, but they made a change for the show to make it even more distinct. In episode 8, and this one is titled The Lord of the Tides. And this one is a pretty obvious one when you actually see it occur.
Beware the beast beneath the boards.
Now, this quote I remember blowing up with all of the rumors and all of the speculation of what it could mean, because again, this is something else that does not happen in the book. But we all know what happens because Rhaenys ends up escaping from the Red Keep, and she ends up finding her way to Meleys and just bursts through the floorboards and basically could have ended the war there, but ends up flying away to let Rhaenyra know about her father's death and about the coronation of Aegon. The 5th prophecy comes to us in episode 9, which is titled The Green Council.
Your father, there is a beast beneath the boards.
This one can mean 2 different things. The first thing is in this episode we see everyone trying to find Aegon because Viserys is dead and the Greens are trying to get him onto the throne as soon as they can. Aegon is basically playing a game of hide and seek as he gallivants around the streets of King's Landing, visiting different types of brothels. Eventually, he's found by the Cargill brothers as he's hiding in a cabinet down in the Red Keep. Now, the reason why that I think this quote goes with that, once again, there is a beast beneath the boards, is because I think Helaena knows that Aegon does not want to be king, and then eventually he will become the king. And is he really a beast as far as his ruling goes? Now, we see bits and pieces of that in the first episode of season 2, but we also see the more gentler side of him when he's talking to the townfolk. So it will be interesting to see if this is what she was talking about. The other thing it could have been is just another reminder about Meleys, because again, it's very similar to the first one we hear her say in episode 8, beware the beast beneath the boards. Whereas this one is more, there is a beast beneath the boards. So I do think she is talking about Aegon and about how his ruling will end up going. Prophecy number 6, also in episode 9, She says this statement when she's talking to her handmaidens. And again, I don't know how much of a prophecy it is, but it's kind of giving us a summarization of where we're headed.
It is our fate, I think, to crave always what is given to another. If one possesses a thing, the other will take it away.
I think this has important meaning because I think it can apply to basically every single character, whether it's for greed or jealousy or even revenge. I mean, the jealousy part can definitely come from Alicent, knowing that she coveted the freedom and the privilege that Rhaenyra grew up with. Otto and Daemon, they see nothing but opportunities to try to grab more power, and I think that's pretty obvious even in the first episode of season 2. And even at the end of the last season, we see the retribution that Aemond wanted because of what Lucerys did to his eye. So I think that this is just a really big, nice summarization of the entire series so far. Prophecy number 7 we just saw in the last episode in season number 2, episode 1, which is titled A Son for a Son. In this scene, we have Aegon visiting Helaena, and he's trying to find Jaehaerys because he wants him to come to the Green Council to learn how to be king.
I'm afraid.
Don't be. They'd be fools to come with Vhagar protecting the city.
Not the dragons. The rats.
Now, Aegon thinks that she's talking about the threat of Team Black and their dragons because he tries to reassure her that they have Vhagar, and as long as Vhagar's flying around the city, they're not going to do anything. But Helaena is quick to clarify her point, not the dragons, the rats. And I think that this has all to do with blood and cheese, and obviously what happens at the end of episode number 1. Prophecy number 8 comes in this episode as well, and when Aegon first walks into the room, we hear Helaena kind of chattering and talking to herself. Now, I spent quite a while trying to increase the audio, trying to increase the voice, and this is the best I could come up with, so I'll go ahead and play that for you now. Now, if this is actually what she says, I think it clearly can be something that happens later in season 2 or maybe even season 3. So I think the quote here, "You only want it for yourselves," that could possibly mean it could be Otto. I think it could also be other characters who just want something for themselves. So I think at this point, we don't know who we're talking about, but I think Otto would be a really good one to start with, or it could be a group of people, because the way she says the line, and I'm pretty sure she does say yourselves at the end, if that is definitely the word. So she has to be talking about more than one. But I would start with Otto on my guess of what this one means. And then prophecy number 9 comes to us in episode 11 of the series, The House the Dragon Built, where they kind of take you in depth and give you a nice look at the episode. So there are several different types of drawings that they show that Helaena has done around the room. Now, in episode 1 and the previous season, we have not seen any of these. And I think it's probably coming later this season. But the one I really want to talk about is the one down here that looks like a woman on fire. Now, again, I have not read the book as far as past season 1, but I have heard a few spoilers. I am not going to speculate on who this can be, but it could obviously be a character from this current series. But I'm going to go a little different route. I'm going to say this possibly could be Daenerys, because she does walk out of the fire naked when she has the dragon eggs. So it could be her prophesizing way in the future, kind of like when I talked about Bran Stark. So guys, I don't know. Let me know what you think about these 9 different prophecies. Did I miss one? Did you catch anything else? and which one do you think I'm right on, and which one do you think I'm way off on? Let me know down in the comments. Let's have a good conversation about this fantastic series. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget, keep those heads on, and I'll see you guys in the next video.